I never imagined posing as a billionaire's wife would lead to life-changing love. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The cold wind cut through my thin jacket as I stood outside the towering glass building, feeling small and lost. My heart raced. There I was, just a nobody from a small town, ready to step into a life so foreign, it felt like stepping onto another planet. They call him Ethan Blackwood. A name that sends ripples through the city every time it's whispered. A billionaire. A man who you'd think has it all, but standing there, I could see an unmistakable sadness behind his confident smile. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but I could feel the weight of secrets lurking just beneath. The thrill of the unknown tingled at my fingertips as I entered his office, where lavish decor clashed with the dark shadows of his past. That it didn't take long for our paths to intertwine. Under the pressing weight of a lie, I became the woman he needed. The warmth of his presence felt electrifying. How could someone so guarded spark such a flurry of emotions in me? Each stolen glance ignited a flicker of hope in my chest, yet I knew the reality behind this charade would one day come crashing down. My hands trembled the first time he reached for my wrist. His touch felt like lightning, intense and electric. Ethan wasn't just a cold-hearted businessman, he had layers, complexities that pulled me in. Moments spent in his luxurious penthouse painted my world in shades of gold. It was a fairy tale, but even fairy tales have their flaws. His phone would ring late at night, mysterious callers asking questions that sent shivers down my spine. I could see the weight of his decisions dragging him down. The confusion in his eyes mirrored my fear. We were both trapped in this web of pretense. Then there was the gala, dazzling affair where dreams seemed boundless, but the tension in the air was palpable. I wore an exquisite gown, the fabric shimmering like the stars above, but beneath the glamour, dread churned in my stomach. What was I really doing here? Questions flooded my mind. Would our fantasy shatter in front of the city's elite? In that moment, I saw a flicker of desperation in Ethan's eyes as he glanced around, searching. What was he hiding? His fingers grazed my back, sending warmth through me, yet a fracture was forming between us, fueled by his secrets. With each passing minute, I felt the atmosphere thickening, pressing heavily against my heart. Just as I thought we could navigate through the storm, the doors burst open. Gasps filled the room. In walked a woman who radiated power, her presence commanding silence. She looked straight at Ethan, every eye now glued to their magnetic connection. The air crackled with tension. What was their story? Who was she to him? I stood frozen, my heart pounding violently against my ribcage, a lump forming in my throat. As I searched Ethan's face, a sense of dread washed over me. Would this be our undoing? His eyes met mine, just for a heartbeat, a fleeting moment of connection eclipsed by the chaos unfolding around us. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence that enveloped the room was deafening, echoing the turmoil spiraling inside me. I could barely breathe as the stunning woman approached Ethan, her strides deliberate and unyielding. I was an interloper in a world that now felt dangerously skewed, where the line between dreams and nightmares blurred into an indistinguishable haze. Ethan's posture changed the moment she stepped within reach. The proud, confident billionaire flickered, replaced by a man caught in an emotional crossfire. Sophia, he breathed, his tone just above a whisper, and I felt every syllable land like a stone in the pit of my stomach. The name sent shivers down my spine. It was as if a shadow from his past had clawed its way back, demanding to be seen. Ethan, she replied, her voice smooth and icy, a stark contrast to the warmth I had come to crave from him. I didn't expect to see you here tonight. There was an undercurrent of tension in her words. I struggled to catch my breath, but it slipped through the cracks of my composure. I had thought we were beginning to forge something real, yet here I was, witnessing the evidence of a life he had tucked away, a ghost lingering at the fringes of our newfound love. As whispers brewed around us, I turned to Ethan, searching for answers in his gaze, something, anything, to quell the chaos unfurling within me. His eyes held the same bewilderment I felt, but a storm of guilt simmered behind them. I needed the truth, needed to understand what this meant for us. When he glanced toward Sophia, my heart sank deeper into uncertainty. "Let's talk," Ethan said firmly, taking a step forward. It was less a request and more a rush of adrenaline fueling the urgency in his voice. I held my breath, torn between following him and fleeing from the impending confrontation. Without a word, they slipped away, two figures drawn into the shadows of a world wrapped tightly in secrets, leaving me stranded under the dim lights of the gala. Moments felt like hours as I stood at the periphery of an unspooling reality, the laughter and music fading into oblivion. Just then, a gentle hand gripped my shoulder, drawing my attention to a kind, older woman standing beside me. "You okay, dear?" she asked softly, her eyes filled with genuine concern. I wanted to cry, the kindness of a stranger momentarily soothing the ache blooming inside me. I don't know," I admitted, feeling deflated and raw. "Everything feels like it's falling apart." She nodded knowingly, glancing toward the stage where the glimmering lights painted a false sense of happiness over a crowd buzzing with intrigue. "Love can be messy, but sometimes it's in the mess where we find our truth." Her words lingered with a warmth that ignited a flicker of resolve deep within. Maybe I didn't have all the answers, but I could fight for what I felt blooming with Ethan, even when shadows of his past threatened to dampen the light between us. As the woman walked away, I took a steadying breath, steeling myself against the uncertainty. Moments passed like an eternity, and just as I gathered the courage to venture deeper into the fray, the atmosphere shifted. Gasps erupted once more, and I turned in time to see Ethan standing in the center of the room, facing the crowd. Sophia stood close, yet it was the glint of a familiar engagement ring on her finger that took my breath away. A splash of chaotic color amidst the muted grays of my heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan announced, the gravity of his words pulling everyone's focus. "I'd like to introduce you to my fiancée." My heart dropped into the abyss, and a deafening roar replaced the soft murmurs of my despair. I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself to breathe as a torrent of emotions swirled within me. Betrayal clawed at my chest, bitter and raw, overwhelming despair begging to take root in the place where hope had once flourished. In that moment, I became engulfed in darkness, knowing that this revelation would shatter everything. Tears streamed down my face as the fragmented pieces of my world spiraled into chaos. Ethan had been hiding a truth far worse than I'd imagined, and with every heartbeat, it felt like the last vestige of the love I had dared to believe in slipped further away. I turned to leave, fleeing from the weight of the unspoken promises and the life that no longer belonged to me. Behind me, the echoes of laughter mingled with the weight of heartbreak, and then, as I reached the grand exit, the last flickering spotlight fell upon Ethan. His eyes searched the crowd and, just for a heartbeat longer, they landed on mine. A look of pure anguish crossed his face, a silent plea, and in that moment, I knew our story was far from over. But was love enough to break the ties that bound him to a past he couldn't escape? I had to know, but the answer may shatter the frail threads we had woven together. The sound of the gala swirled around me like a vortex of color and light, but I felt like a ghost tethered to the observation deck of a sinking ship. Ethan's announcement lingered in the air like a tangled note, full of promise yet inevitably piercing. I stumbled out into the crisp night, allowing myself to become a blur among the muted lights of the street. The biting wind licked at my skin, but it was the chill of betrayal shrouding my heart that truly paralyzed me. In the haze of my emotions, the world around me began to shift, each step a reminder of how naive I had been. I never imagined that posing as a billionaire's wife would lead me into this labyrinth of love so precarious and fragile, only to find those threads slipping through my fingers in the cruelest of revelations. But then, from the shadows of despair, a glimmer of kindness emerged. I found myself before a quaint coffee shop, half lit by a flickering neon sign. It felt like a constant in this ever-changing landscape. I crossed the threshold, the warmth wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. Seeking refuge from the storm brewing inside, I ordered a simple cup of chamomile tea, hoping its soothing essence could calm my tumultuous thoughts. As I waited, my gaze fell upon a young waitress, her hand steady as she delivered steaming cups to a crowded table. She smiled with an authenticity that caught me off guard, a stark contrast to the masked faces I had encountered at the gala. I found myself drawn in by her spirit, a reminder that goodness could exist, even in moments of profound darkness. "Rough night?" she asked gently, her eyes twinkling with warmth that pierced through my sorrow. That I wanted to collapse into her comforting words, to unburden the weight of my heartache, but instead, I offered a resilient nod. "You could say that. Just remember, sometimes the best stories start from the messiest moments," she said, returning to the kitchen. I focused on her innocent belief, letting it cradle my despair as the tea was placed before me. With each sip, I tried to muster the strength to confront Ethan's truth and the shadow it cast over our fragile connection. The image of him anguished and torn played in my mind like a bittersweet melody. I couldn't reconcile the man who had discovered my laughter and dreams with the one who now stood tangled in the throes of a commitment I never knew existed. The door chimed, and I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. But it wasn't Ethan, rather a collision of gray and black as Sophia swept in, her presence disruptive and oddly commanding. She didn't notice me initially, her focus entirely on the barista, who seemed taken aback by the fervor in her voice as she placed an extravagant order. A twinge of curiosity mixed with resentment as I overheard her speaking on the phone, her voice sharp and finicky. "No, Charlie, the gala was a disaster. We have to do damage control. Ethan can't afford to slip from the limelight, not now, especially not with the tabloids sniffing around." The last vestiges of my composure cracked at the mention of his name. I clutched the edge of my cup, a cascade of emotions bubbling forth. My heart raced. What did she mean? Was I merely a side note in a game far larger than myself? Suddenly, her eyes fell upon me, and a glimmer of recognition flickered across her face. "Oh," she said, adopting an entirely different tone, one of feigned sweetness. "You're that girl. The one Ethan's been gallivanting with." A flammable wisp of anger sparked within me, but it was drowned out by the gravity of the situation. "And you're the one he's been pretending to forget," I shot back, my words sharp and defensive. For a moment, a shadow crossed her face. Was it guilt? Or perhaps realization? Then, just as quickly, her mask reformed. "Trust me, darling, if Ethan was worth your time, he wouldn't have let you go. You've just been a distraction while I figure things out." Her words, raw and piercing, settled into the silent space between us. Desperation clutched at my throat as I wrestled between the urge to scream and the deep-seated need to protect myself. I felt like a puppet tangled in a show where I had only ever been a supporting role. "You don't know what he means to me," I said, my voice quavering with the weight of unspoken affection. Her laughter was cold and bitter, an echo of derision. "You're right, I don't. But I can assure you that you're not the only one with a history. If it comes down to love, it often has to fight for its place." Suddenly, the door flung open again, and I felt the electric tension in the air shift. Ethan entered, his gaze instantly seeking me amidst the dim light. In that split second, time froze. The moment felt significant, charged with urgency. I wanted to melt into his embrace, to let the pain of the evening fade away, but Sophia's mocking eyes encircled us like a noose. Ethan's expression morphed, shifting between relief and confusion, but all the while, a deeper concern threaded through his brow. "Sophia?" he called, his voice slicing through the tension. "What are you doing here?" Caught between the past and the present, the air thickened, choking me with uncertainty. I was poised on the precipice of chaos, teetering between what I had hoped for and the undeniable reality that could unravel everything. I could feel the impending storm brewing, and just as quickly as chaos had descended, I realized I wasn't just a spectator of this drama. I was deep within the heart of it, waiting to see if love could survive the truth. The weight of Ethan's gaze bore down on me, and I felt like a tightrope walker teetering high above a chasm of confusion and betrayal. My heart raced as his query hung suspended in the air. The warmth that had enveloped me since stumbling into that coffee shop evaporated, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. Sophia shot me a smirk that hinted she reveled in the twists of this tragic play. I quickly glanced at Ethan, his brow furrowed, and in that moment, I saw not just a man caught between two worlds but a soul as tangled as mine. I had never wanted to hurt him, but the shadows of doubt loomed larger now than ever. Ethan, I began, but my voice faltered, caught in the cyclone of emotions swirling inside me. I ached to pour out the anguish that had been building, the unease that had spiraled from his secret life that I had unwittingly stumbled into. But the moment seemed fragile, like a glass figurine, and I feared that any wrong word would shatter it. Let's talk outside, he suggested, his voice low but resolute, as if he understood the invisible threads binding us. I nodded, my heart a tumultuous drum as I followed him, every step heavier than the last. The chill of the night seemed to wrap around us like a blanket of unresolved tension. We stepped outside into the muted glow of streetlights, their light flickering like the hope I clung to. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etching lines into his handsome features. The truth of it burned in my throat. I think the better question is, are you okay? What did Sophia mean tonight? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I knew all too well. It's complicated, but I want to explain everything. There was a sincerity in his voice that pulled at the strings of my heart, compelling me to listen even as anger simmered beneath the surface. Complicated? You have no idea how basic my life had felt before I stepped into yours, I replied, my words dripping with a balance of hurt and defiance. I handed you my trust, and what did you do with it? I never meant to betray you. His voice trembled like a fragile leaf in the wind. I thought we had something real, that it mattered. Does that matter come with conditions? Because all these layers of your life are suffocating me. Each word felt like a relinquished piece of armor, exposing my vulnerability. Please, just let me explain. There was urgency in his plea, a longing that seeped through the cracks in my walls. Sophia, she was part of a life I was trying to escape. A life I thought I could leave behind when I met you. But it's not that simple, it never is. A part of me wanted to believe him, to trust in the sincerity of his voice, while another part screamed in dissent, accusing him of tearing open wounds I had only just begun to bandage. What is it then, Ethan? What do I need to know? He inhaled sharply, as though steeling himself. I never wanted you to be involved in my family's business. That part of my life is like quicksand, dangerous and suffocating. But I love you. I've never felt this way about anyone. The confession hung in the air between us, a glimmering thread of hope amidst the despair swirling around me. Love. Did it truly exist within all this chaos? Yet lingering in my mind were Sophia's words, tokens of a past that left scars deeper than I knew. What does this mean for us? I whispered, the quaking timbre of my voice catching on the shards of vulnerability we shared. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, igniting a warmth that spread through my body. It means I will fight for us. It'll show you how powerful love can be, how it can overcome the obstacles in our way even if it takes everything I have. Just as the promise of newfound hope flickered to life, the quiet peace of the night was ruptured by the shrill notification of a message on his phone. Ethan glanced down, and his face fell, an expression of dread washing over him like a storm cloud. What is it? I asked, anxiety tightening my chest. It's the press. He looked up, eyes wide with fear. They know where we are. They're coming. Panic surged through me, a whirlwind of emotion threatening to drown out my thoughts. The press? What does this mean for us, for our future? A sudden loud crash echoed in the distance, startling me and scattering my thoughts like leaves in a tempest. His face hardened, a mix of determination and fear fiercely glinting in his eyes. Run. We need to get out of here now. Before I could register what was happening, he pulled me away, our hands intertwined in a frantic embrace against an uncertainty that threatened to swallow every hopeful moment we had built. As we dashed into the night, my mind raced, torn between the knowledge that our love was still a fragile flicker and the undeniable truth that it had become an even greater target. In that mad rush forward, I grasped onto the last thread of hope while my heart beat in rhythm with the chaotic drum of impending change. With each pounding footstep, reality set in. Life had never been peaceful, and facing my ultimate fears was only just beginning. The fluorescent lights of the convenience store were harsh against the darkness of the night, but as we slipped inside, I felt a momentary reprieve from the chaos outside. Ethan paused, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see shadows lurking in the alleyway. My heart raced not just from fear but from an urgency to understand what was unfolding. Do you think they'll find us here? I whispered, scanning the aisles filled with mundane items. Toilet paper, snacks, detergent. These were reminders of a world that felt impossibly far away from the surreal one we had just escaped. Ethan shook his head, his voice low and steady. For now, we're safe. We just need to blend in. He moved toward the back of the store where the aisle was narrow, filled with cheap trinkets and old magazines. That I tried to steady my breathing, but my mind was chaotic. My heartache and confusion waged war within me, battling against the tender moment we had just shared outside. Love? Could I still believe in it after all this? Then I remembered Ethan's declaration and the promise of hope it seemed to carry. I wanted to take it with both hands and hope it would shield us from the imminent storm. As Ethan attempted to recount the details of the threatening message, the store owner, a wise, elderly man with a gentle demeanor, interrupted us. You two all right? He asked, concern etched on his wrinkled face. You look like you've just run a marathon, just taking a breather, Ethan replied, managing a weak smile. I caught a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes, a stark contrast to the fierceness he had displayed moments ago. The man nodded knowingly. Take your time, but it can get wild out there. You don't want to get caught up in something you can't control. Sometimes, it's best to hunker down until the storm passes. His words hung in the air, an unexpected moment of kindness at a time when fear loomed heavily over us. I looked at Ethan, sensing the burden of his past weighing on him. Do you think we can trust him? We don't have a choice, he murmured, the shadow of despair creeping back into his voice. With that, we decided to linger in the store, the sound of the bell above the door chiming each time a customer entered or left a welcome distraction from our newfound reality. Minutes felt like hours as we huddled in a corner, two souls entwined in turmoil. Memories churned to the surface, the laughter we shared over coffee, the gentle touches that sent warmth spreading through my chest as if they were pieces of a life that felt increasingly out of reach. Time became elastic, stretching and compressing until it was difficult to distinguish how long we had been waiting. Suddenly, Ethan's phone buzzed again, a jarring interruption. He quickly turned away, positioning himself to shield the screen from my view. It's just my mom, he said dismissively, his tone void of the usual affection that had accompanied our earlier conversations. My breath hitched. Ethan, shouldn't you at least hear what she has to say? I don't want to think about that right now. He shoved the phone into his pocket. The shadows pooling in his eyes spoke of a deeper conflict, one etched with family ties, future obligations, and the tightening grip of a past that refused to loosen. In that moment, I couldn't hold back the tide of emotion any longer. I don't want to live in your shadows, I confessed, the weight of my fear spilling out like an uncontained river. I don't want my love for you to become a liability. His gaze softened as he reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers cautiously as if afraid of breaking something fragile. I'll find a way to protect you. I promise. There was conviction in his vow, a glimmer of hope that seeped through the cracks of our disarray. As if summoned by my wavering hope, the store owner appeared again, a steaming cup of coffee in his hands. Here, he said, handing one to each of us. Might help ease the tension. That I took a hesitant sip, the warmth seeping through me like the balm I so desperately needed. With every swallow, I felt the heaviness within me begin to lift until my eyes caught sight of Ethan. The weight was still there, but in the depths of his eyes lay the same tangled yearning and resolve that flickered in me. Thank you, Ethan said, a genuine warmth igniting in his voice as he accepted the cup. The simple act of kindness rekindled some of the belief that had been wearing so thin. The moment was stolen away, however, when the unmistakable sound of a car screeching to a stop outside shattered the temporary peace. My heart lurched at the sound of hurried footsteps making their way toward the entrance. Ethan's eyes widened, panic etched on his face. We have to go. Now. In those swift seconds, reality felt all too real. The door burst open, and the night air rushed in, carrying with it a wave of uncertainty. I caught sight of figures silhouetted against the lights, their faces hidden but intentions clear. As we bolted toward the exit, I could feel destiny pulling at my shirt, urging me to confront the storm. Just as we passed the threshold, the weight of the world shifted, and my heart dropped when I heard an unexpected voice call out from behind us, "Ethan." Stop, the name hung in the air, heavy with consequence. And in that moment, I feared the strongest ties of all those of family, and the tangled web of love versus loyalty. My heart clenched, realizing that every choice made from this point forward would only deepen the stakes, transforming us into pawns in a game neither of us had asked to play. The night air rushed past me, sharp and electric, as I turned to see who had called Ethan's name. My heart pounded like a war drum, sending adrenaline coursing through my veins. The shadows of the two figures solidified into two familiar faces: Ethan's estranged older brother, Samuel, and their mother, Marianne, a potent mix of authority and care flooding her expression. "Ethan, please." Marianne pleaded, her voice slicing through the tension. "You don't have to run. Just talk to us." Ethan froze, his eyes darting between me and the scene unfolding behind us. I could see the turmoil waging war inside him, a battle of obligation against the fledgling dreams we had begun to construct together in this fragile cocoon. "I can't," he choked out. "Please, not now. You don't understand what's at stake." Samuel stepped forward, his stance firm yet filled with a reluctant empathy. "We're not here to hurt you, little brother. We want to help. Just let us in." I could see Ethan's resolve teetering on the edge, the fissures cracking in the stoic barrier he had built between us and his past. I wanted to reach out, to remind him of the connection we had forged, a love burgeoning against all odds. But there was a vast chasm of fear and uncertainty separating us, a barrier that felt insurmountable at that moment. "Please, Ethan," I urged, stepping closer, desperate to coax the man I loved back from the brink. "What are they really here for?" My words hung in the air, a lifeline in a storm. But it felt like a fragile thread, one that could snap under the weight of his anguish. I could feel his fear echoing in the silence between us, the weight of the world on his shoulders tugging him back toward the family he had sought to escape. "That I can't," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, eyes locked on the pavement, as if searching for an answer in the cracks of the concrete. "I can't go back to that life, but," Marianne pressed, her tone shifting from desperation to nurturing, "we worry about you. You're not alone in this, Ethan. Let us help. We can face whatever's happening together." The vulnerability in her voice was palpable, and I felt a flicker of sympathy for the woman who stood before me, withered by loss and the struggle of familial bonds unraveling into chaos. But I couldn't help but worry what her help would mean for us. Ethan hesitated, and in that moment of indecision, I felt a spectrum of emotions surge through me: fear, love, and an unyielding desire to stand by his side, even as ties threatened to pull him away. "Ethan," I said, trying to strengthen the bond between us, "you don't have to do this alone. Not anymore. We can fight this together." He looked at me then, and I saw the storm of emotions swirling across his face, caught between the life he had known and the love I offered as a refuge. "But if I let them in, I might lose you anyway," he replied, his voice trembling with the weight of his admission. Samuel, sensing the shift in Ethan's resolve, pressed on. "What's out there is dangerous, Ethan. We've been trying to protect you. Forgive us if it hasn't felt that way." I could see the years of conflict reflected in the tense lines of Samuel's brow and the depth of worry in Marianne's eyes. Their intentions were shrouded in the shadows of past grievances, yet here they stood offering a united front born of love for Ethan. "Please, Ethan," Marianne continued, her voice now a tender whisper. "We just want to protect our family," but the fractured bonds of their family had never felt more fragile. He was caught in an emotional crossfire, and the fallout could leave me damaged too. Anxiety overflowed within me, praying that he would see the light I had glimpsed in his eyes only moments ago. For an agonizing instant, a decision hung in the balance. I could almost hear the heartbeats echoing in the silence, the rhythmic pulsing of 3 lives intertwined. In the chaos of emotions, a surge of unexpected hope flickered within me, reminding me of our shared laughter, whispered dreams, and the promise of an uncharted love. As I stepped forward, a wave of warmth accompanied my words. Ethan, whatever happens next, know that I'm with you. I know what you mean when you say you can't go back. But don't push us away because of fear. His eyes locked onto mine, and for an electrifying moment, it felt like time dissolved. But just as I thought he might take a step toward me, another loud shout broke through the air. Ethan. Before I could register the voice, the tall figure of a man appeared in the doorframe, shoulders squared, face a mask of anger and purpose. My heart plummeted, recognizing the familiar silhouette. It was Lucas, a figure from Ethan's past, associated with troubles that had long since threatened to overshadow every comforting memory. Come with me, Lucas demanded, voice cold and uncompromising. Now, the precarious balance of our moment shattered. I watched in cold dread as Ethan's shoulders tightened, the pull of allegiance and fear clawing at him. My heart raced as I realized we stood on the precipice of everything unraveling: his family, our love, and the fragile threads that connected us all. That I can't leave with you, Ethan said, his voice almost breaking under the weight of the choice. But Lucas was unyielding. You don't have the luxury of choice anymore. You're in deeper than you realize. As our lives swirled into chaos, the choices made could redefine everything I thought I knew. Just then, the full weight of the storm approached, torrential and inevitable. In that moment of uncertainty, a haunting thought echoed in my mind: could love alone save us now? The cold bite of the night air felt sharper now, punctuated by the pounding of my heart as Lucas loomed over us, a dark figure cloaked in the unresolved complexities of Ethan's past. The tension strung between the four of us was electric as I recognized the shadows creeping over Ethan's features, fear etched with indecision. Ethan, don't, I urged, stepping closer, desperate to bridge the distance between us as hope clawed at my chest. You can fight this. You don't have to let him pull you back. But Lucas' presence loomed over us like a storm cloud, much like the ink-black memories that threatened to swallow Ethan whole. I could see the flicker of conflict in his eyes, a reflection of the life he had fought so hard to escape and the burgeoning love he was on the cusp of embracing. Why are you even here, Lucas? Samuel said, breaking the taut silence. His voice was steady, but I could hear the resentment simmering beneath. You were supposed to be out of his life for good, Lucas smirked, a cynical grin twisting his lips. Life doesn't work that way, does it? You've all underestimated the stakes here. He took a step forward, sending a ripple of panic through me as Ethan instinctively shifted his stance, preparing to defend. Stay away from him. I shouted, surprise propelling my words as they broke free, igniting the charged atmosphere. I had meant to be the calm in this tempest, but the indignation bubbling inside me spilled out. Ethan is not a pawn in your game, that's rich, coming from you. Lucas leaned in closer, holding my gaze with an intensity that made my skin prickle. You think you know him? You're just a distraction, a flicker of light he's clinging to while the real storm gathers. With every syllable, his words dug deeper, stirring fears I had managed to suppress until this exact moment. The lurking thought that maybe I was just an interlude in the symphony of Ethan's life, a temporary sanctuary from demons that refused to rest. No, Marianne interjected firmly, stepping between Lucas and us, her voice unwavering. Her maternal instinct radiated strength, and it wrapped around me like a shield, sort of unexpected comfort amidst chaos. He is not a pawn. He's our son, and we will not let you threaten him anymore. Ethan stood there, visibly torn between Lucas' ruthless grip on his past and the desperate pleas of the family he had distanced himself from. I could see the emotions wearing on him, the ache for belonging pushing against the desire to forge his own path. Ethan, please, I implored, urgency pooling in my chest. You are not alone anymore. If you need to fight, let's fight together. I don't care what happens, I just want you. He turned to me, a mixture of longing and horror flashing across his face. But what if I pull you into something you could never walk away from? Through the haze of uncertainty, his dilemma became achingly clear. The past was not just haunting him, it threatened to swallow me, too. I thought of the laughter we shared and the dreams we dared to envision together, hopes that felt so fragile now, as if a single wrong move could shatter everything that I want. Let you down, I said, my voice trembling but resolute. I believe in us. You can find a way to break free. There's still a future before us, but just then, a low rumble echoed in the distance, a premonition that something greater loomed on the horizon. Samuel's eyes darted toward the sound, a flicker of fear crossing his features. Lucas, you need to leave, now. He urged, the ultimatum clear. Lucas straightened, his expression hardening. You think this ends here? You don't know what you're dealing with, Ethan. I'm giving you one last chance to come back home to the family that actually matters. He paused, his gaze shifting to me, malice brewing in his words. Once you turn your back on all this, there will be no turning back. You're already in deeper than you know. In that moment, the weight of his threat settled over me like a blanket of dread. I could feel the darkness he brought hover on the edges of my thoughts, intertwining with my hopes and fears for Ethan. Just as he prepared to leave, Lucas glanced over his shoulder, locking eyes with Ethan one last time. The choice is yours. But remember, every action has its consequence. With that, he turned away, striding into the shadows from which he came, but I could already see the murky depths threatening to consume us all. Mariana's breath hitched as Lucas' retreating figure vanished into the darkness. She turned to Ethan, eyes glistening with the prospect of lost time and closeness. Ethan, we've fought for you before, and we'll do it again. But you need to open up to us. We can help you face this whatever it is that has come back to haunt you. Ethan looked strained, the inner war raging anew, and my heart wrenched at the sight of him caught in turmoil. The hope I had nurtured began to feel hopeless within this storm of family ties and devastating choices. Just as I opened my mouth to reassure him, a distant siren wailed in the night, creeping closer in a way that felt all too ominous. The realization crashed over me, we were standing at the edge of something larger than ourselves, deeper than Ethan's fierce web that promised consequences neither of us were prepared for. As the sound drew nearer, I held my breath, staring at Ethan's face, the turmoil etched across his features a reflection of my own anxiety. I could feel the cracks in our fragile world threatening to splinter farther apart. Suddenly, my phone buzzed urgently in my pocket, breaking through the silence like a harbinger of fate. Glancing down at the screen, dread pooled in my stomach as I read the name flashing across it. It was a message from someone I had hoped to leave behind, someone who could unravel everything we were trying to build. My heart sank, the words swimming before my eyes, taunting me. Time's up. You don't know who you're really dealing with, do you? Trust is just a pretty word in a game where you forgot the rules. And in that moment, I realized, the stakes were higher than I ever imagined, and the dance of shadows was far from over. The air was thick with uncertainty, wrapped tightly around us, and the finality of Lucas's parting words hung like a pall. I glanced at the cryptic message on my phone, my mind racing as fear and confusion swirled like an impending storm within me. Ethan. I began, swallowing hard, the words barely escaping my lips as uncertainty clawed at my heart. But he looked lost, staring past me into the dark where Lucas had vanished, his expression shattered beneath the weight of choices placed before him. Just give me a moment, he said quietly, his voice cracking under the strain, and turned away, giving me a fleeting glimpse of the churning emotions he struggled to contain. Marianne reached out to him, desperate to bridge the growing chasm, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. We're here, Ethan. We always have been, she murmured, but the intimacy of her words met the indifferent chill of the night. I know you want to help, he replied, his tone distant, but I can't keep dragging you deeper into my mess. The anguish in his voice wrapped itself around my heart, squeezing tighter. Did he truly believe I would walk away simply because the path ahead grew darker, yet the truth loomed heavy in the air? What if he was right? What if my presence only entangled him more in a web of shadows that threatened to suffocate us both? I'm not going anywhere, I stated firmly, the resolve growing inside me. I took a step forward, my intensity a beacon in the staggering darkness. No matter how heavy this gets, we're fighting together. But as Ethan turned to face me, his eyes were filled with uncertainty, and for a second, I felt the ground beneath me loosen, threatening to swallow my fragile hope. You don't understand, he implored, pain lacing his every word. Lucas is just the beginning. There are forces in my past I can't explain, people who will do anything to keep me under their control. You deserve better. And there it was, the choice he felt he had to make, the dreadful burden he carried alone. I reached for his hand, intertwining our fingers, hoping my warmth could banish the icy grip of his fears. You deserve the chance to be free. But you need to trust me, I whispered, daring him to feel the strength of my conviction that in that moment, a flicker of something, a glimmer of hope, perhaps crossed his face. I thought I saw a sheen of tears threatening to spill over, and my heart ached for him, yet something deeper stirred within me, urging me to ignite the fight in him. Just then, the wailing sirens crescendoed, reverberating through the night, breaking the intimate silence that had cocooned us. Mariana's eyes widened as we both caught sight of flashing lights in the distance. We have to go. It's not safe here, she said urgently, glancing toward Ethan, whose expression flickered with uncertainty. He hesitated, glancing back at the dark path from which Lucas had come, as if that very corridor contained answers he desperately sought. That's when I felt the rush of adrenaline. Our time was limited and the shadows were closing in. We need to make a choice now, I urged him, pulling him close. We can either run from these shadows or we can confront them together. But we must act. Please. With the sirens growing louder, I could see the visceral battle raging within him. Marianne tightened her grip on his shoulder, whispering reassurances while casting wary looks towards the encroaching chaos. Finally, a decision seemed to spark in his eyes, the flicker of determination against the dark. All right, he said, voice steadying as he took a step toward me, let's go. But as we turned to run, I felt a pang of dread, knowing my phone still vibrated in my pocket, coiling tightly in a way that foreshadowed consequences that could unravel everything. I hesitated for a moment, torn between the urgency to escape and the culpability of leaving behind the message that could change the course of our futures. Let's hurry. Marianne called, her worry mounting as the lights grew nearer, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that the true threat lingered just out of sight, waiting to strike. I pulled Ethan one last time, anchoring him to the moment. Well, face whatever comes next together, remember? I encouraged, believing every word. But he could only nod, a flicker of resolve mingling with trepidation beneath the surface. As we rushed down the dimly lit path, I glanced back one last time, the echoes of Lucas' malicious laugh haunting me. I couldn't escape the sensation that this was only the beginning. I felt my phone vibrate again, insistent against my thigh. I could no longer ignore it. With trembling fingers, I pulled it out, the words now glaring back at me, a stark reminder that stillness would not grant us peace. Not so fast. There's more you don't know, and time is running out. Be careful who you trust. And just like that, my heart sank. I dared to look at Ethan, whose confusion mirrored my own, a painful realization coiling tightly in the depths of my stomach. In chasing freedom, had we unwittingly stepped into a deeper, darker game? A game that now fully entangled our lives, where every decision would carry consequences far beyond our reckoning? As the sirens echoed, swirling in a cacophony of chaos, we plunged into darkness, the uncertainty now a living entity that followed closely behind. The darkness felt heavier now, a weight pressing down upon us as we raced away from the chaos. With each breath, I could feel the storm of uncertainty brewing inside me, the sensation of being pursued not only by the sirens but also by the ominous message that still flashed in my mind. What did they mean? There was more I didn't know. Ethan ran beside me, his grip tight around my hand, our shared warmth a fleeting refuge from the surrounding menace. I glanced at him, trying to read the chaos in his eyes, a mixture of fear, confusion, and something else, a determination pushing through the cracks. We could run, but I feared the shadows would always find us if we didn't confront them. Marianne led the way, her urgency palpable, carving a path down the narrow alley that twisted away from the main road. We need to hide, just until the sirens pass, she called over her shoulder. The idea of hiding felt futile, like closing my eyes in a storm, hoping it would all go away on its own. But as we ducked into a cramped archway, my breath hitching as the lights flickered past, I thought of Lucas. Had he known the depth of the nightmare waiting for us? We crouched close, Ethan's shoulder brushing against mine, heat radiating between us, a stark contrast to the chill creeping in. "We can't stay here for long," he whispered, his voice low. I could feel the tremor in his words, the lingering fear that we were living on borrowed time. I wished desperately to somehow ease his burden, to carry it for him, even if just for a moment. "That I won't let you fight this alone," I said softly, forcing my voice to match his quietude. "Whatever it is that's haunting you, well, face it together. Just trust me." His gaze lingered on me, those beautiful eyes brimming with unshed emotions. I saw the shadows stretch across his face, the pull of his past evident, yet in that instant, I recognized a small ember in his heart, a flicker of hope that had not yet been extinguished. But before he could respond, the sound of footsteps crunched nearby, followed by voices rising in agitation. A chill ran down my spine as I pressed closer to Ethan, tears of anticipation prickling my eyes. "Did you see what they looked like?" A man's voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. "They can't be far. They're slippery little rats, stay alert." "That I thought I saw them head this way." Another voice chimed in, barely concealing the panic radiating from them. The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet, and I grasped Ethan's hand tighter, wishing I could dissolve into the shadows. There was an urgency to escape, but the sirens hovered at the edge of my consciousness. The message flashed back in my mind. "Be careful who you trust." Though I felt Ethan beside me, I couldn't shake the rising fear that perhaps this moment of safety was no safeguard at all. Without intending to, my thoughts began to tangle into a web of doubt, like a cold whisper threading itself into my heart. "What if we're being hunted because of you?" I whispered, anguish spilling out as a truth I didn't want to acknowledge. "What if they want you?" His eyes widened, a mix of surprise and regret swirling within them. He opened his mouth to respond, but the crunching of gravel interrupted him, the voices now dangerously close. I could practically feel the hot breath of potential betrayal in the air. Before I could contemplate our next move, Marianne stepped forward, her face lit by sheer determination. "We need to go now," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. "Follow me." With no time for discussion, I found myself propelled into the fray again, following Marianne's lead down a side corridor. A doorway emerged, marked by the faint light slicing through the darkness. "Through here." She beckoned, and as we slipped inside, relief coated my nerves, if only momentarily. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, I felt an overwhelming sense of safety envelop me, like pulling a heavy quilt over my shoulders, but the relief was short-lived. I quickly realized this room was lined with photographs, faces of people I didn't recognize, all mingling among some I did. Each captured moment felt like a jolt to my chest, a sense of dread twisting its roots deeper into my stomach. "What is this place?" I breathed, scanning the walls. The images began to combine into a tapestry of lives, intertwined fragments of history that hinted at connections I couldn't comprehend. Ethan stepped next to me, a gut-wrenching look settling on his face. "I don't know. But there's something sinister about it." His voice trembled, and he wiped a hand across his forehead, as if trying to erase the chill running down his spine. Marianne moved closer to inspect the photos, her brow furrowing with concentration. The air thickened with tension as she pointed to one image, her voice quaking as she whispered, "Ethan, this one looks like you." As I leaned in for a closer look, my heart plunged to my stomach. The man in the photo had a striking resemblance to Ethan: dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to flicker with the same haunting shadows. Who was he? My mind raced with a myriad of questions, but none could seem to break through the fog of impending dread. What does this mean? Ethan's face paled further, the implications coiling around him like a vice. Instinctively, I reached for his hand, needing to ground him. "Ethan," I said, fervently searching his eyes for answers he may not have. "What don't you know? Who is he?" But just as he opened his mouth to respond, the sound of heavy boots thundered outside the door, hard knocks ricocheting like the percussion of our racing hearts. I felt the heat leave the room, replaced by an icy abyss. "Ethan," the siren's sigh growing fainter. "We need to leave," Marianne urged, but our escape was slipping away, the threat closing in like the walls of a collapsing tunnel. "We can't stay here," Ethan whispered, panic echoing in his voice as he locked eyes with me. "But I need to know. I have to find out who he is before they do." His words struck a chord deep within me, a terrifying chord that threatened to unravel everything I had fought for. With every second ticking by, we stood at the precipice of choices that could change everything forever. Yet just as I prepared to voice my thoughts, ready to soothe his turmoil, I caught sight of something glimmering on the floor, half hidden in the shadows. My breath caught as I picked it up, an ornate key, cold and heavy in my palm. Suddenly, the realization hit me like a tidal wave. "They're coming for us," I said, panic lacing my tone. "We're not safe here." With a final glance at the images that conspired against us, I turned to Ethan, the gravity of our situation crystallizing. "Whatever mysteries connect us to this place, we need to unlock them and get out." But in the depths of that room, with chaos awaiting just outside, I couldn't shake the foreboding sense that our fates were already intertwined in ways far beyond our comprehension. As the door rattled against the threat of exposure, a chilling realization fell over me. Perhaps trusting each other was the only truth we could hold on to amid the unbearable uncertainty. And with that unyielding weight, I held the key tightly against my heart, a tether to hope that didn't yet feel like hope at all, while the truth loomed like a dark shadow in the corners of all we thought we knew. The key felt cold and heavy in my palm, an object of potential, but more importantly, a symbol of choices yet to be made. I glanced toward Ethan, whose eyes flickered between determination and fear. I knew, deep down, that whatever lay behind the door would shape our destiny. But time was slipping through our fingers, and desperation nudged me forward. "Let's find out who he is together," I urged, shoving my uncertainty deep within. "But we must hurry. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side." Moving toward the door, I could hear the muffled sounds of footsteps growing closer, heavier, and more deliberate. With a deep breath, I inserted the key into the lock, my heart drumming against my chest as I turned it slowly. A click echoed in the suffocating silence, a promise of what lay beyond, and I felt the air shiver with possibilities. As the door creaked open, Ethan's warmth radiated beside me, filling the shadows with an undeniable connection forged in the fires of stubborn hope. We stepped through the threshold into a dusty room filled with more photographs, but this time they were different. These were older, frozen frames depicting a sprawling history, lives intertwined, lives affected by choices made long before we ever entered the scene. "It's a family archive," Ethan breathed, his voice barely above a whisper as he combed through the clutter, eyes darting over each face. The room felt heavy, not just with dust but with secrets drenched in emotional weight. I caught sight of an old journal nestled among the chaos, its pages worn but its spine strong, as if guarding the very stories that defined them. "Ethan, look at this." I held it up, and he took it from me, flipping it open to reveal yellowed pages filled with handwriting that almost danced with eagerness. "This," he murmured, his brow furrowing as he read. "It's my father's." The revelation sent a shudder through me, a sense of gathering storms. I could see waves of anxiety ripple across Ethan's features as he continued to read, piecing together fragments of a past he had tried to escape. Distant murmurs seeped into the corners of my mind, clinging to the air. Our time was short, and officers were surely searching for us outside. "Ethan," I urged gently, "whatever it reveals, we need to understand it fast. We can't let them catch us again." His eyes darted back to me, laden with determination. "You're right. This could be the key, the truth I've been blind to. The answers we need might be buried beneath layers of regret." We flipped through the pages together, names and dates taking shape against the canvas of our bewildered minds, revealing connections that wove through generations. It was a tapestry unraveling before us, sparkling with truths and regrets. In the chaos, I could sense the shadows that had haunted this family, the dark choices that twisted lives. Then it struck me, a familiar name. It leapt from the page, startling me wide-eyed. "Ethan, this mentions something about a deal with Lucas. It isn't just an old family conflict, it's something much deeper. It involves the business, the stakes higher than we thought." Ethan's expression morphed into one of anguish. "If Lucas has been holding my family hostage to these secrets, no, I can't let that happen to you. Not again." I felt his worry wrap around my heart, fueling my resolve. Just then, the vibrations of voices surged closer, a warning bell ringing in my ears. "Please," I said urgently, "we have to find a way out, but we need to take this with us." I pointed to the journal, a lifeline tethered to our mission. With a hard decision before us, I felt the weight of our choices pressing down even more heavily than before. Ethan nodded, and together we tucked the journal under his arm, our fingers brushing in that moment of silence a promise that we would protect one another, no matter what lay ahead. As we hurried toward a second door at the far end of the room, I caught a glimpse of shadows looming outside, figures moving with a tenacity that made my blood run cold. The evening had transformed into a palpable fight for survival, a balancing act of hearts and choices that begged to shatter. Pushing through the door, we found ourselves in a dimly lit corridor, peeling paint and faded memories lingering around us like ghosts. My heart raced as I stole quick glances back, half expecting a tumultuous storm to break behind us. "Ethan, we have to keep moving," I implored, urgency flooding my veins. He squeezed my hand, a spark zipping between us, igniting the fear darkening my heart. "I won't let go," he promised, and those words carried me through the dark, an anchor against an approaching tempest that we turned a corner and emerged into the alleyway outside, where the night air beckoned. The tainted memories lingered in the shadows, but our moment outside felt like our only refuge for a fleeting second. Breathing in the crispness, I looked at Ethan was beautiful, even amidst the chaos, but hope flickered again, as distant headlights illuminated the path ahead. "There's a car coming!" I yelled, panic clawing at me once more. Could we make it to safety before they found us again? Ethan's eyes flared with determination. "Well, make it." With that, we dashed into the shadows, hearts pounding as adrenaline surged through us like a river of defiance against the night that threatened to consume our dreams. As we ducked behind the corner of the building, I could hear the rattling engines drawing near, voices swarming in the chaos. "They're searching for us," I breathed, watching Ethan's expression darken as the realization hit him like a wave. "There's no turning back now," he said, determination racing through his features. "We've come too far. We can't let the past control us any longer." I wrapped my arms around him tightly, heart pounding wildly against the precipice of our world where shadowy figures gathered, honed in on our presence, a final confrontation brewing just beyond the veil. In the whirl of emotions and chaos, I could feel a moment building, a final embrace of acceptance. "Whatever happens, promise me you'll stay with me," I whispered, my heart aching as I searched his gaze, the dark shadows cradling the emotions that flared between us. "You deserve more than your past. You deserve a chance." His expression softened, filled with love and pain and resolve, and in that instant, I felt him pull me closer. "Always," he said, and I knew that our connection illuminated the darkness, the promise of two souls entwined embarking on a chaotic journey. And then, a voice broke the stillness, soaring above the clamor of uncertainty. "Ethan. We know you're here." As the sirens wailed in the distance, threatening to drown us in the storm, I took a deep breath, grounding myself against the winds of fate, ready to confront whatever awaited us. The night stretched before us, a wild expanse filled with uncertainty, yet in that moment, I knew one thing for sure: our hearts had become the map leading us forward, traversing the uncharted trails of love, resilience, and ultimately the discovery of who we were, both together and apart. Then I whispered, "Let's show them how powerful love can be." With that, we stepped forward. Together. Both in turmoil and possibility. No more shadows. No more pretenses. Just us. And as we faced the flood of lights coming toward us, I felt our connection surge, a tether wrapped tightly, binding us to our fate, and I knew, whatever we encountered, we would face it as partners, because together we were more than just a story entangled in a web of family secrets. We were for a reckoning, and amid the uncertainty and echoes of our past, I found my voice breaking through, resolved and fierce. "No more hiding. Let's do this." Together, we turned to confront the night, ready to forge the path anew, in search of our truth that would illuminate the shadows that once sought to define us. Together. Forever.